good afternoon.
Hello, everybody.
Hi there. Thank you all for coming today. We are super excited to be in Chicago having a live conversation. I'm Imani, one of the co-hosts of Players.
Hi, and I'm Demma. I'm also a co-host, and just to give you a little background on me, I'm a filmmaker here. I'm produce, I write, I direct, and we have the podcast to talk about just like the business of film and all the topics that covers. And then I do community organizing here. So if you're interested in, finding an organization or coming to a Film Girls Brunch, please let me know.
Yes, and a little about me. I'm a film programmer in LA. I used to be in Chicago and did like indie production and like indie film programming here, and now I'm in LA. After 3 years, I also do producing and writing. And yeah, it's just been great having Players as a mode to demystify different topics in the film industry. We are on Spotify, so you can check us out. We also have a website where you can check out past episodes, different guests that we've talked to. We've had a decent amount of Chicago guests. So that's why we're super excited to be here. So thank you all for coming.
Yes, and before we bring up just this great panel of people, I want to, can we give a round of applause to all the volunteers that are at Filmscape that have been working so hard and doing amazing. They've been so lovely to work with, and I also just want to shout out Ned for allowing us to come on stage and Winter Davis for all her work for Filmscape. Yes. So yeah, give it up for Winter, yes. So thank you to their entire team. I hope you guys have had an amazing Filmscape, and we're nearing the end, but we're not there yet. So happy that you came here for this panel. And then do you want to talk a little more about what we're going to be talking about?
Yes, so we are kind of centering in on community building around filmmaking. So it's not only important to practice your craft and such, but you're also constantly meeting people, constantly getting exposed to new organizations, new communities, new ways to meet people and find different collaborators and such. And so we have some amazing folks who are very tapped into the Chicago filmmaking community here and have also had experiences outside of that too. So we'll talk about different festivals and how we've approached those in the past, such as South by Southwest. Demma went to Cannes Film Festival, and there's just like so many great ways to constantly build your network and your kind of pool of collaborators that you are working with.
Yeah, so without further ado, we have three amazing people we're going to be talking with. We're going to bring them up. First is Armin Corsos. He's a filmmaker himself. He does the founder of Chicago Filmmaker Fridays. So please, Armin, come up. We can sit down, I think. Armin, hello. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on this panel.
For sure.
And then
we've got Gabe Collier as well, who's also a filmmaker and founder of Screen Time Chicago. Yes.
Hello.
Thanks for joining, Gabe.
And last but certainly not least, we have an amazing producer, and she's just done so much. I don't even know the list, but Natalia
Salazar.
Yes. Salazar, sorry. I only call her Natalia. She's a friend of mine. But welcome.
Yes.
How are we doing today?
Doing good, yeah.
Great. Hot.
Yeah,
it's hot outside.
We're fresh. Yeah.
It's very hot. Cool. I would love to like kick it off and like ask everyone like a little bit about themselves. I know we just talked about like what you have like founded and worked on here, but if you just want to give some more context to some of these initiatives, we can start with Natalia.
Sure. We're talking about our background. So let's see. I'm a producer. I've worked in commercial, documentary, narrative, music video, short film, feature length, scripted narrative. The gamut. I've at least had an experience in different forms of production. I'm writing a script. I'm a trained actor. Just a bunch of different experiences here and there throughout the film circuit. And I helped launch an organization called IFA Chicago. It was formerly Stage 18. Yeah, it's a great Oregon town. Had some really great mentors and kind of came up through the industry locally here through that org. So So yeah, definitely been in touch and focused on the network that I built in order to help me get to the next step. I know these two guys, so it's great to be on a panel with them.
Yeah. I should go next? Okay, cool. My name is Gabriel Coulier. I am the owner of Mixed Media, which is a video production, like a bespoke video production company. I'm also the founder of Screen Time, which is a 90-minute showcase for short films. We just had our 3rd year this past May. Damn, that was a lot. Wow, okay. Time's moving. Yeah, so I'm also a filmmaker, but most of my work with mixed media is telling stories for brands, businesses, and people in the city of Chicago and nationally. So, yeah, that's a bit about me.
Amazing.
Hey everyone, my name is Armin Corsos. You probably know me because I was the founder of Filmmaker Friday Chicago. But outside of hosting events, I also started my own production company 5 years ago, and I specialize in commercial work and documentary films. And something I'm excited to talk about today is we produced a 5-minute surfing film last year that we shot in Mexico, and we just got back from Mountain Film Festival that we attended in Telluride, Colorado a few weeks ago. So really fascinating to be self-producing projects, getting into big festivals, being among really beautiful films, but also the takeaways from these events that are outside of Chicago and bringing those home and seeing how we can improve events in Chicago. So Filmmaker Friday, we actually just had our 1-year anniversary this month.
Ooh, congrats.
So I see some familiar faces. We've hosted over 1,200 people in the past year, and we've done 15 events. We're excited to keep it going in the city.
Amazing. Well, I think I'm ready to sort of like zoom out, and that's what the first kind of part of this discussion is going to be. Instead of just focusing on Chicago, I really want to take a step back and think about the world, and honestly, just like the filmmaking world, whether it's in the US or international, and how those things and how we can learn from those things. And I guess my first question is, like, what experience do you guys have, going to a festival outside Chicago, or, going to events outside Chicago, working out of Chicago? And then if you haven't, had a ton of experience with that, what do you do to stay informed with what's happening at large?
Who's going to go first? Who's next?
Well, you talk.
Gonna keep putting Natalia on the spot.
Okay, fine. I mean, not all festivals are alike. I can say that, and I've been to. I really, really enjoyed South by Southwest, although it's in that sort of stage of elite fests that are not as attainable anymore, unfortunately, for a lot of filmmakers that do a lot of great work. But it is a very well-oiled machine. I'll give it that, and it's a cool intersectional experience too, because it's not just film festivals. They also have music and tech and innovation and all these different tracks that you could, engage yourself with. But the film festival is well done. So I enjoyed that. And I've also been to Black Star in Philly, which is also intersectional, very, very dedicated festival to POC voices and content of filmmakers from those lenses. So that was also really cool and different, and on a different scale, different content, all kinds of different attributes than something like South by. But yeah, I love festival going, just for the network and the community and the relationships that you build. So that's why I like to festival go.
I can give a little bit about my experience. So I haven't been to many festivals, just a couple through my short film, Buy, Sell, Trade, that I produced and directed and all that back in 2022. I went to Sundance in 2024. Yeah, and that was my first big festival. I learned a lot. I'm glad I went. It was kind of one of those situations where, the homies just hit me up and were like, hey, we're all gonna fit in this hotel room. Like 5 of us.
How many? 5? Oh
yeah,
my God.
It's like 2 rooms and a couch, you know what I'm saying? So I didn't know if I wanted to go, but I'm so glad I did. I didn't personally, it was the first weekend of Sundance, so like it's crazy, right? Premieres. My friend had a media pass, couldn't really get to the cool films to like cover them, which is of course. But one thing that I learned was to just go and figure it out after. I didn't get a pass to watch any movies, right? I know, it sucks. That's what you're there for. But I made the most of it by just, I hit up pretty much anybody black and brown and was like, yo, what are y'all doing tonight? And people were so receptive to that. And to just go and network and go, honestly have fun was really fruitful. And I met some really cool people there and learned a lot about like what to do for screen time and stuff like that. So yeah, that was kind of my experience, just going to like a big festival.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think going off of that, if you start attending different film events inside or outside of Chicago, you'll quickly realize that they're all vastly different. And the feel and the vibe of the people that attend and the films that get into the festival, and if there's panel discussions, like the panelists that they choose to invite to speak are all very different. And I think these festivals are amazing because going back to, I just went to Mountain Film Festival, which is specifically a outdoor adventure conservation documentary style festival. And just seeing the quality of the work well outside of maybe what you are producing. For example, we did a surfing film, but there's a film called Cecil, which was about if you guys remember in like 2016, the trophy hunter dentist from Minnesota who killed the lion in Africa. So that's what that film was about. But it was like a conservation one, like totally different. And it's amazing to meet the director and speak to the people and the subjects in these films. And I think just if you think of networking more, like less like a burden, like you're approaching these people and you want something from them. If you think like people who attend festivals are also going to network. So if you make a small icebreaker, small thing, then you probably can have a conversation with that person. And there's a panel discussion that I attended at Mountain Film where there's like 30 people there. And one of the people who was waiting for the panel, he looked kind of interesting, and I just made it a point to always strike conversations with random people, even if it feels uncomfortable. And turns out this guy was a professional Sherpa. He's summited Everest twice, and he professionally leads expeditions for literally all of the title sponsors of the festival, like North Face, Patagonia, REI, all the big ones. And this is just a random guy. And it was fascinating to get that inside perspective and learn stuff outside of panels and just meet the people that created the films that I admire. And I think that event was vastly different than what's available in Chicago, but it's inspiring to ask the question then, like, why isn't it here? And why do we have to leave Chicago to attend a very niche specific event? There's no reason why it can't happen here.
Well, did you feel like at Mountain Film Festivals, it was like really, people were approachable, it didn't feel quite as big as like something like Sundance, or was it still a pretty big festival?
So what was interesting is they had like stars from the brands, like the faces of North Face. And like I talked to one of the guys, Conrad Anker, he's like a really famous climber, but they're all really approachable. But it's cool because I think what was most special is the programming that we were programmed in. We spent $1,500 on this film, including film festival submission fees total. We spent probably 3 times more attending the festival than we did on the actual film.
Totally. Yeah.
But then we were programmed with films that were 2 North Face films, 2 Red Bull films, and 1 Arc'teryx film in the same programming. But then you also get to talk to those directors and producers and like professional Red Bull skiers, and it's just really cool to be looped in with the same people who you would probably otherwise have a really hard time meeting in real life. And yes, everybody was very approachable.
Amazing. That sounds really cool. I want to go. Cool. So just thinking about like the different kinds of people that you can meet, you all have like worked in different initiatives and organizations here in Chicago. And so kind of when you were first building some of these community gatherings and spaces, were there things that you were kind of thinking about from these other festivals that you've been to, just like try and incorporate in your own? Are there things that you like want to tweak and like put in for your own things? Because I through my job, I like run a film festival in LA, and I'm always like seeing what other people are doing and seeing how like, oh, like, can we do that? Or like, oh, that wouldn't work for our audience or things like that. So how do you all approach that?
Am I going to be first every time?
No, I can go first.
No.
You go. Oh, okay.
Go.
I was kind of curious what Imani, what you've like seen and
Flipping it back.
incorporated to
Yeah.
Flipped it on you.
Totally.
Tell us.
I love South by. I've gone the past 3 years in a row, and it was like, thankfully for work, because like you can talk about that too, but just like budgeting and like trying to make these things happen. But yeah, thankfully got to go through work, and each year has been different in terms of like, oh, like South by really loves like genre, like buzzy kind of like titles. In terms of like the film festival circuit.
Yep.
And seeing that trend and like, oh, what are they programming for shorts and they're episodic and such, and what is kind of like the filmmaker experience, because each time I've gone, I haven't had like a project, like I've just like gone as a filmmaker programmer, and then also just like someone in the industry just trying to like learn and network and see movies and meet filmmakers. And I think too, I really love some of their panel topics, and the way that they do their panels is like really interesting with the panel picker, where people can like vote on different topics from like different folks that are like pitching different panels. So we've thought about that for like the festival that I do it's called Proof Film Festival. It's specifically for proof of concept short films in LA. And I'm like, oh, what would it be like if we had like people like pitch panels? Because we have panels too, and I just kind of do it. But what would it look like to have like the community come in and like give feedback or tell us about what topics they want to hear and such? So I've learned a lot through that.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, I think that's what I learned from Sundance a lot. Was like the first day I went to this really beautiful panel discussion on, I mean, it was kind of a sad topic. It was like book burning and like how we overcome, the silence of information, basically. But the way they programmed it was really beautiful. They had like poetry happening. They had a panel discussion, and then they had like book readings from Octavia Butler and other authors, which I thought was really sick. So like, also going to these festivals, they got hella budget. All right, like.
Sometimes.
We're trying to figure out what to do with like not a lot of budget. So, but I think one other thing that I experienced going to festivals, and it's not a good thing, is when you're in a film festival, you know this, maybe not at Mountain Film, but you're like, damn, I got into a festival, hell yeah, let's go. And you get to the theater, and there's like 7 people in there. You're like, damn, I worked on this, and there's just 7 people watching. I spent money to go to Philadelphia or whatever, and So with screen time, I really wanted to cultivate an atmosphere that is like, let's celebrate everybody that we can. So it's a Chicago-only film festival. Only directors that are producing, directors. From Chicago, the film was made in Chicago, where like the subject matter is in Chicago, so that we can get people that have worked on these projects into the building as well, and to like get a high energy, to get some reactions from these films, because they deserve it, right? That's what I learned on a negative note from film festivals and going to some across, state lines and stuff like that.
Totally. Some things like run the gamut where you're like, this is a scam.
Yeah, what? Like, why did I just travel here and there's like 6 people, and that was awkward.
It's like a guy. It's like one guy. His name's Paul.
Yeah.
It's like a projector.
You've been there. I feel like everyone's been there. I don't
Totally.
know.
Anyone
I think one of the considerations I had when starting Filmmaker Friday was, if you want people to come to your event, you better put on a damn good show, because they're donating their time to spend time at your event, and those people that are coming really pay attention to all of the details. How is the hosting? How long, if it's like a networking and panel discussion event, how long is the panel? Is it too long? Is it too short? Are you leaving enough time for people to show up? Everything needs to be a consideration. And there's even venue considerations, like how easy is parking? Is there like a place to go get a drink afterwards? There's a lot of considerations. And I think that's something that people, when I urge people to start their own events, if they see a hole in the market that people would attend, I urge you to start your own event. I think we often put way too many obstacles in front of us that may actually be non-existent, but
like what?
So, I mean, I'll go back to our event series. I mean, our first event, it was like 50 people, and it took like over 2 weeks to fill up because no one knew about it. But I think something, like I didn't expect to be doing multiple hundred people for each event, but things build momentum. And you don't have to, even if you have a goal of, I want to host consistent 100, 200 person events each month, well, it's all going to start at the very beginning and taking advantage of people speaking highly of your event and hosting high quality events, and who are you inviting to speak. That's all considerations. And I think also I was overthinking about like, oh, I need to do a website, I need to do newsletter, I need to do all this. We didn't have a website for like the first 10 months. It was only Instagram, and we used a platform called Partiful to text people with text notifications. So you don't need as many things to get started. And I think you should focus more on, does it have a good name that's catchy, easy to remember? Is it memorable? And is the event something that people would want to come back to? Because I've been to quite a few events that I would never go back to.
Well, I also think it's interesting if we can just run it back for a second. So Filmmaker Fridays was something that was in New York first, right? So you took that and then you applied it to the Chicago community. Like, what was that process like? Yeah,
so my close friend Parker Foster started Filmmaker Friday in New York City. So it's I'll call it our sister event. Same idea, different city. He actually, going back to the previous question, we started speaking about starting an event series at the same time, but I came up with a lot of roadblocks on why not to start it, and he just started it sooner than I did, but the conversation started at the same time. So he's like a 4 or 5 month head start on me. But the events, it's interesting. I think when hosting events, you also need to be conscious of the feedback that you're getting, and I frequently send out surveys because I'm really curious about what people think. Is in New York City, what we found is people prefer the networking events, and barely any people showed up for the panels. But in Chicago, our panel discussions have been doing way better, and people prefer the panel discussion hybrid with networking over just a networking event. I don't exactly know why. Maybe there's just more panels in New York, so people are craving a networking event, but I would be focused on, pleasing the people who are wanting to join your events. Like, if you can't keep giving them events that they don't want to attend.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's interesting. That's something that we sort of did, is like taking a template from somewhere else and then applying it to your local place. I mean, Imani started Film Girls Brunch in LA, and then I was like, oh, that sounds fun. Let's do it in Chicago. And so we started doing it in Chicago. But it is also similar to that. We found that the crowd in LA wants to know about different things, and they're struggling with different things than the people in Chicago. So it's like you can't have the same sort of like panels or whatever, but it's an idea that came from a different place and is now serving the city and serving the communities here.
Totally. That's a great point, Demma. Natalia, did you?
Yeah, I think kind of bouncing off what Armin said, going to different festivals and seeing the attainability and how some things are not accessible to everybody to even just get there or attend, including the filmmakers themselves who have films in the fest. So for me, in my most recent position, I had a platform where I could bring in new orgs, up-and-coming filmmakers to screen or have a panel on a discussion to bring some of that access here to Chicago. Bringing in new partnerships like Filmmaker Friday, like Film Girls Brunch, like Mezcla Media Collective, like EcoFixer, which is the only company in town that focuses on green, sustainable production. A lot of these orgs are minority and women owned or run. Midwest Film Festival was a huge partnership brought in, and making a accessibility to the locals here for some of the great work that like Filmmaker Friday is doing and other orgs in town, so that they don't feel like they're missing out. missing out, if they can't make it to a festival or don't have the means to get there, at least there's some of that here. Because we do really want more like panels and people who are, I guess, veterans in this industry who maybe are more likely to be on either coast, but we have a great talent base here, and so providing some of that here so that they don't feel they have to leave was really important to me.
Totally. And huge shout out to Mezcla Media Collective. That's where I got my start. In terms of like programming here and like just the way that changed throughout my whole time there, where we were like, I came in like, it was like virtual programming for COVID. And then how we kind of went back into in-person, and then moving to LA, there's just nothing like Mezcla really. And kind of in response to that, then being like Film Girls Brunch and how it can all,
Don't you just want to move back, Imani? What are you doing out in LA?
Dude.
Everybody's leaving LA.
And Demma, do you want to talk about Cannes as well? And like
Yes.
what you kind of learned there?
Yeah,
in the Mecca.
I think that it's like the information sharing there is so different than like Chicago, because it's like it's everyone from everywhere, right? So it's like international. It's where people go to screen films. I did not buy a pass to go to any films either. I was just there to like literally meet people and network and learn things about what it takes to like pitch a project, what people are interested in terms of that. And I think one thing that like is a big difference between producers in Chicago, whereas like you're at Cannes and the producers are a little at a higher level, they're just like, well, who's the name? Who's this? Who's that? Like they want to know like who is giving you money for your project, because that matters, and like who the name is there too. So it's like being able to work in a different market. And I think that like it depends on the goal of your project, but then coming back here and being able to like tell my friends that it's like, okay, well, if your goal is to get, to a larger production company or work at a level with an A24 or whatever, like you need to have a named actor and stuff like that. I think people are just really plugged in to what's going on in film at large. There's a lot of sales agents there. There's a lot of whatever there. There's like, you can learn so much and at that place and then come back and like share that information here. And I think one interesting thing is that the international like buyers and distributors and stuff, there's an event in LA that happens in November called the American Film Market, and it's essentially where people go to buy films, to sell their films and get distribution. So they were saying like, oh, like we can't get work visas to come into the US anymore, so we're not going to be attending. And these are people who have attended for decades. So that's something interesting that I learned, where it's like, okay, that's changing. And that's not something that would necessarily be talked about here. But then when I talk to filmmakers here, you can tell them like, oh, AFM is going to be different this year. And I think like going to these different events, you're able to then share the information with your community.
Totally. Huge.
I have one more thing. I wanted to jump in and say too, like, this is all information that, and I'm curious if you guys do this too, but like, if you read The Hollywood Reporter, if you read IndieWire, if you read like all these publications that also share this information, like being really well researched, like you don't necessarily have to, go to Cannes to do all of this too. I think that can be really powerful, and it can, Armin didn't have to go to Cannes to be the person he is now, and like a great producer. And we travel around to different festivals, and I'm just curious like how you guys kind of stay plugged in with all this different information going around that's just not only Chicago based.
Yeah, and where to put that time too, because as we just talked about, there are scams, and there are just things that people will advertise, and they're not what they say they are.
I was just gonna jump in on that real quick. When I went to Sundance, I didn't realize so it's filmmakers, right? And they're artists. So in some way, we're a little bit naive, maybe in some ways. You can go to Sundance and like be a part of like a little commune situation for free boarding. Have y'all heard of this?
What does this mean?
Yeah,
I don't know what it's
yeah. So all you have to do is like cook a couple of meals.
What?
Right. So I'm like walking around.
Tell the people.
I went to several parties that were like very cult-ish. So just like trigger warning.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not really. So just like on that note is just like, just be careful about, you could kind of like scam them and be like, I'll be a part of your cult for like 4 days and I'll cook a meal and I'll get free boarding, right? And then I'll spend time elsewhere, right? But just know what you're getting into when we're talking about like that scam side of things. This is something I had no idea about before I went to Sundance, and there were like a couple of them for sure.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
so
haven't
beware
heard
of cults.
I didn't know that.
I'm
know
not
that either.
lying.
Learn
I'm
something
not
new
lying.
every day.
But you're gonna talk, or someone else is gonna talk.
That just blew me. I forgot what Imani even asked because I'm focused on
Talking
cults.
about cults in
How do we stay informed
Oh yes.
without going to film
So
festivals?
I got paid to stay informed. Research and policy was a lot of what I did in my most recent position. So constantly, every day, reading all the trades to see what market is doing what's happening on the coast. Oh, fires are happening. Everybody's moving out of LA. Oh, Louisiana just withdrew their tax credit. Oh, like all of the new things that are going on. It's like constantly changing, and it is sort of hard to know like who's more valid than the other, because in one trade you'll read that indie is in and that's the new market, and then in another we'll say, oh, it's dead. Mid-level range budget films are dead. So it's kind of, you have to take everything, I think, with a grain of salt and as like a big larger picture instead of just like what's happening over here as Bible, because it varies. But it's good to, I highly suggest staying informed by just focusing, like even if it's just once a week, to take time to keep up with what's happening in the trades. Definitely.
I think something else to pay attention to is also where the big studios are choosing to build new sound stages is often a pretty good indication that they know something that we might not yet, but they're putting tens of millions of dollars into physical infrastructure. And I think Netflix is building really big stages out in Jersey right now.
Yes.
Almost
It's
done.
almost done.
Yeah. So, it's interesting to see shifts away from big cities and, of course, the tax incentives. Even if you're not producing work that meets the criteria for the tax incentive, like $100,000 or $250,000 or $1 million budgets, it's still important to know, because then you know what's like a film-friendly city. You also, should be aware of rental houses in those cities and like what incentives they might have. There's a lot of free equipment being put out there that you just have to give a good pitch and maybe partner with some people to get the work going. So I think attending events is a great way to do it. Obviously staying informed online. But yeah, I think the sound stages one is probably the only physical way of, because you don't know how many shoots are going on in a city at any given point unless you work for like the film permit office.
Totally. Yeah. No.
I was gonna ask, do you have is there like an Instagram that you get like that information from of like where Netflix is building a soundstage, or is it just something that's in your timeline?
It's just online publications, like some of the top
trades.
film publications will always.
IndieWire, like
Hollywood Reporter,
yeah.
Variety. I think that's where I first saw the Netflix announcement was, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, IndieWire. Highly recommend Matt Bellamy's The Town podcast.
love
We're
that
big
too.
fans.
That focuses, I feel like, too on big picture, not as much like indie. And for indie, you can listen to ours. But but yeah, I think that like staying informed is such an important thing as an indie filmmaker, no matter what position you're in, whether you're in crew, whether you're a producer, whether you're a PA. I think that information is just like everything, and it is so important to stay informed globally and then apply that to your community.
Yeah, I think we started that as kind of like this thing too, of not us being like, we're the authority on this, but like we are truly like, the podcast is like a live like of us like also gathering information and figuring things out and exploring, and like we went to American Film Market together, and like we were just like, no plans, like no pitches, or just like what's going on here. We want to know,
Boots on
and then
the
be able to
ground.
share that information, apply it to like our thinkings and how we're approaching our projects and such. So yeah.
Yeah, I think too, I'm curious, you guys, like what would you say like indie filmmakers can then do with this information? Like, what in your mind when you were like, oh yeah, just seeing what the studios are doing in New Jersey, and then would you say like, oh, look for jobs in Jersey, don't move, but you can maybe like look for projects there or something like that? Like, what do you like recommend?
Well, I think the biggest indication that where studios and stages are being built is maybe there will be more emphasis on narrative films in the future, and you can kind of follow those trends. And I think also consuming media, like if you see a lot of trending documentary films, like probably it's what's trendy. And I'm not saying necessarily follow what's trendy, but your film and its success will be directly influenced by the current, political cycle, news cycle, what have you. I actually have a close friend of mine who's a film producer, and he's producing a film on conservative or Republicans who are also conservationists. And the film didn't have any legs for 4 years, and then finally now it's gaining momentum because of the news cycle. And you have to take advantage of that. Like if your film has something that would be trendy, then you have a higher chance of getting more PR, getting more eyes on your project, getting more clicks, more meetings. Then I think it's really important to stay conscious of what people are consuming, because essentially you're making something that will be consumed. And you need to be, if you're making food, you have to know what people are hungry for.
Yes. Just drop that
Another question for you guys, just like with each of your community work and each of your organizations, what are you hearing are the biggest needs from the people showing up to Chicago Filmmaker Fridays, or from your work throughout the years, Natalia or Gabe, what you're hearing from your people?
I mean, definitely. We're great at production here, right? We have the unions, we have the infrastructure, we have productions that get shot here, but we don't have the agency as so much on the front end and the back end of that, meaning development and distro. And I want that to change. I want stuff that's shot in Chicago about Chicagoans to be written here by Chicagoans. I don't think that's that big of an ask. But then also on the back end too, like distribution. A lot of studios that end up distributing their own work aren't located here. So finding that good balance, which also includes then, the middlemen, agencies or attorneys on behalf of them and the filmmaker, the having those two ends, I think, developed more is what I hear a lot that we don't have, that we should all change. Let's go out and change it together.
Yes, brainstorm.
100%. Yeah.
I think historically, LA and New York have just been bigger film cities. And I think we almost gaslight ourselves into putting those obstacles in front of us, like, oh, but those were the original big film cities, right? And I think instead of leaving the city and pursuing these other events, which I still think you should go to, but I think instead we should be asking, why not? Why don't we have these events in Chicago? And why don't we start hosting these events? Because the events and the festivals is what brings people to the city and helps with distribution and brings in these bigger people. And I was speaking to a friend of mine recently, and he was talking about this phenomenon of going to film events outside of Chicago, but then you consistently run into people that are from Chicago. So why am I meeting people in Colorado, New York, and California that are from Chicago? So we're all leaving here and going to a different city, different state, when I think we could improve the quality and the frequency of film events in Chicago and really help uplift our community, because the events and where people socialize and connect with each other, that's what the roots of a community is. And production can be really strong, but we also need the support outside of film production as well.
I will just say that Chicago was the original Hollywood. Groucho Marx Brothers, SNA Studios. It just, I don't know, the weather was nicer over there, I guess.
Yeah, it was literally weather.
But it does not mean that we can have that title stricken from us, and it should return. So.
And the weather's changing.
Yes.
People want year-round landscapes in the background. They want year-round, I don't think it's, I think people are, especially with this mass exodus out west, I think people are looking towards, we have 4 seasons here, we have a great skyline, we have a great backdrop, which is why people come and shoot their exteriors here and then move back to. I could go on, and I'm going to stop, but we need to bring back more principal photography here.
Yeah,
Totally.
100%. And Gabe, I'm interested in because you do work like, you're doing that screening hour, so you are working on like the distribution part. Like, what do you feel like is kind of, I guess, missing, or what are you hearing from people that are screening? Like, what do they want? How do we like improve on the distribution side in Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of them that comes up. Like Armin said, like doing a survey after screen time, like what panel discussions do people want to hear? Distribution, funding, right? Of course. That's a hard one to tackle. But yeah, I mean, I think the idea of just having an audience and building an audience seems to have been resonating with people. So screen time is a panel discussion in the beginning. Shout out to Natalia, she was there for the first year. And it's a panel discussion, a 90-minute screening of Chicago-made short films, and then it is like an after party. So it's at the Davis Theater. It's a perfect place for that, right? They have a bar next door. And this year we have like a DJ and all that situation. So I think, yeah, creating an audience through events, through screenings, and showing up for other people. Something that I've thought of, and actually some feedback that we got from some filmmakers was like, what if we sold the screening to, like, it's 90 minutes. What if we could package that and sell that? Don't take our idea. I mean, it wasn't mine, but you know what I mean? Like, what are some other ways that we can support filmmakers? So that's one little tidbit. Yeah.
To piggyback off that, I had an idea and I didn't get a chance to execute it this year, but I'm hoping to do it soon, and maybe I can work with you, Gabe, I don't know. But to have a slew of really good like Midwest or Chicagoland made work that maybe has gone through a festival run, maybe has an accolade or two, but didn't get any type of distro, or it's a short, or something like that, and have the indie art houses like sort of nationally have stake in that, so that there is still national distribution that can be bought and come out of Chicago without dealing with a big chain that maybe is subject to a studio for whatever they acquire. Like, so the music boxes, the Davises of the country could somehow have a market that takes place here, that acquisitions and distribution deals come out of here without any middleman or agency or any of that. Because, yeah, we could package any of those projects individually, or I haven't thought of it as a full screening, like that, but as a 6 to 8 week distribution length for each of those theaters. Say regionally, we get one from different regions, so that it counts as national distribution for that work out of Chicago. Yes. I think that would be a really great idea, and I just have to logistically figure out how to do that.
No, that's really cool. I mean, I feel like there is a bit of an appetite when it comes to the film industry to feel like you're a part of something, and maybe that's just as a viewer, even if you're not working on something right now. So I mean, that would be sick to create a network of like.
And it would equally, I think, help the indie art houses who are struggling sometimes for content, or since COVID have experienced a lull, maybe in business. So it would I think work well for both.
Yeah, I know for a fact that the Davis was like, we want to do more small programming.
Yeah.
They said that. So
For sure. I mean, like where I work in LA, and happy to talk about this offline too, with whatever y'all.
Of course, bring it. Let's do it. There is a bar around the corner.
Yes, we get a business plan together. Where I work, we show at the American Cinematheque in LA. We show like new films, we show old films, and I think there is. Like as a film programmer there, we just announced like we're doing a collaboration with OTV where we took the Key Change queer music video kind of like program over to LA, because I was also like brainstorming a queer music video program for like the end of Pride, and then I saw it on like the main stage newsletter, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna reach out and we can, and then now it's happening at the end of June. So I think there is a market. There is a want for these kinds of like programs to travel, especially like niche ones like that. Like, oh, it's a queer music video showcase. Oh, it's like specifically Chicago made sure it's 90 minutes. There is a want for that. And I went to a conference, it was last year now, Index, which is like a collaboration between the Film Festival Alliance and Art House Convergence, which represents all of those like local indie art houses across the country. And it was so great. So I think like what you're saying, like totally, it was in Chicago and it could like totally happen there where all of these like exhibitors, these independent exhibitors are like coming and meeting and convening.
I think that also, Armin and Imani, I want you to speak on this too, where you're like, we need more events because like in LA, and I've heard this from just Imani's years of being there and her insane schedule, there's a film event, there's probably like 50 a night. I mean, it is a city that is like built on film, and they're just obsessed with it, and that's great. And I think that we're all obsessed with like Chicago film specifically, and I think it's great what you're doing with like Chicago Filmmaker Fridays, and it seems like there just needs to be more of that. And when you said like you want more of that because that's where that really is, and I think you've learned that too, that's where like the sausage is made, that's where the discussions are happening at these like parties or intimate gatherings. Like, I don't know, does that reign true to you? You think more?
Yeah, I think the more film events, the better.
And like what type?
I think a mix of, so we do two types of events, networking only and the panel discussion mixer style. I don't believe that there's such a thing as competitiveness with events. I think the more events, the better. And I think people will gravitate towards the event that they enjoy attending more. But I don't think events can be competitive, and I don't think there's such a thing as too many events. Like we were just speaking about these smaller events that there's benefits to 15, 20 person private dinners, that style event, and there's benefits to 200 person events and expos like this one. So I think people like attending once a year events like this one, and then people like a monthly consistent one. I think there's benefits to all styles of events.
Yeah.
How have you seen that just kind of like prop LA up, where it's just like night after night, bus, club, another bus, another.
I think the accessibility piece is key. I think that's what kind of started Film Girls Brunch too. When I first went to LA, like I had heard like the grapevine of like, oh, there's like kind of a lack of community in terms of like the filmmaking community as a whole in LA, because there's like, I don't know, there'll be like, first of all, the city's very spread out, and people who live on one side don't want to go to the other side. It's like, there's no public transportation, you have to drive. But I have a lot of podcasts that I listen to, so that comes in handy. And so there'll be like, kind of like niche things, kind of like, there's a lot of like invite-only things. And I was like, what is this? That's where Film Girls Brunch came from, of like, can we just have like a casual space for like women, femme creators to connect on a consistent basis too, because I think that's key too, is the consistency. There'll be like kind of like one-off kind of things, and that it doesn't really help like build community over time. So I think that's being addressed now by some different groups. There's a group called Not Your Daddy's Films in LA, which is doing great stuff. There's
Film Independent does great work too.
Film Independent is doing more like consistent, meetups too, because I think people are honing in on that that's really key. It's just like keeping that up.
And I think,
Go ahead.
Out of my peripheral. Well, I was just gonna say, so it's just like the more accessible events, having events which is so interesting, because we do have over 30 film festivals here, and I know like a ton of organizations that are doing a ton of great work. So it's just like, maybe how do we get the word out about those more, or like how do we adjust them so they are like accessing or getting a bigger crowd, and then also getting the like decision makers and the gatekeepers to come and just like be in the city, which is half the battle. I was gonna kind of wrap up with our last little question, but you had a comment, so please.
I was just going to quickly say, there's no such thing as you have done too much networking and you have met too many people. So going off of that, there will never be too many film events because you can always meet new people. You can always connect different people together, and you can't overdose on networking. Like the bigger your network, the better it is, and it's always going to be something that you need to do, whether you're at beginning or at the very top.
Yeah. So for our last thing, I wanted to, we're wrapping up on time here. We have about 2 more minutes. Quickly asked each of our people to give everyone just like an actionable item from this talk. I love action items. I can go first if anyone's, okay. I'll get mine out of the way. So for me, I think even if you didn't attend, a Sundance or a Cannes or a South by, go to their website and make a list of all the films. If you want to make a short film, make a list of the director, the writer, and all the producers on it. They list all the credits out there. It's public information.
And there's emails.
There's emails. And try and watch their short if you can. But I think I've met a lot of people who are like, oh, I want to apply my short to Sundance. And I'm like, oh, like what, films have you seen from Sundance that you liked or whatever, and they haven't seen any because they haven't gone or they didn't do a virtual pass. And I think that can be like to your detriment. If you want to know, what caliber of film they're programming, then you should know, and also just know the people making the films, because in a couple years, I'm sure they'll be making a feature. Or like, for example, for Cannes, I made a whole spreadsheet of every feature film there, every producer, executive director, writer, and director on it, and so I knew what project they were attached to. I think that can be really, really helpful, and it's all like public information, so it's great research to do. So do some research on a festival.
I would love that. Anyone else have some action items for the audience?
Okay, just to piggyback off that, I wasn't going to say this originally, but also research the festival programmers, because a lot of them are open to like emails, and just you can shoot them your work on the side and get any critique or feedback before you officially submit. So that's another tidbit.
Don't do it right before the festival.
No, you're right.
Don't
Right,
expect
right,
a
please.
response.
Oh my God.
Definitely don't,
Right
build a
after it
relationship.
ends.
Yeah. But what I was going to say was, we were talking a lot about community building, networking, finding your crew, your network. Something that when I was at South by a few years ago, I was listening in the audience to a panel of the decision makers, the development folks from different streamers, and one guy basically, this similar question was asked, but it was more generally like, what would you suggest to this audience? And this one guy said 5 words that stuck with me, and he's like, don't be an asshole. Or is that 4 words? And that rang true for me, because so many, I've been in the rooms on crews on the back end of films productions where I have actually heard folks, producers, directors, looking through folks if they needed an extra hand of a PA or whatever, and say, nope, they're difficult to work with, next. And have moved on and taken someone who was a novice over someone who maybe knew a little more, because that person was more easy to work with, or was a sponge and would more easily soak up the information. So when you're at networking things, when you're at festivals, wherever, in this room at Filmscape this weekend, like, just don't be an asshole. Maybe that's a relative term, I don't know, but there are plenty of assholes surely who have made it and have done great things, but just on a human level, just be human, be a nice human. Don't be an asshole, and it will take you far. I have never applied to any job I've had in the film industry, and I think it's just because humbling yourself and taking on work that people give you, and be ready to learn and be sociable and be friendly.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, reach out to your group text right now and ask them who wants to go to a film festival together. Something like that. And then maybe weed out that person that might have joined the cult.
For networking, my biggest tip is going off of what Natalia said, of just being really human. But instead of focusing on quantity, and this is maybe with cold emailing or just meeting with people in person, but focus on the quality. And if you just emailed 10 people a week, but you spent over an hour researching that very specific person that you want to reach out to. I got an email the other day, do not write one like this, please, ever. It was like trying to be cool. It was like, yo, dude, your work is so sick. I've been watching it all week. Anyways, I'm an editor. I'd love to edit work for you. Not a single mention of a specific project, not a single specific question, nothing. But if you email someone and you specifically compliment or ask a question about a project they recently put out, people put out work because they want that recognition and they want people to reach out to them. So, but make it really personal, because no one wants an email that's like, hey, yeah, your film was really good. It was impactful. Anyways, I'm an editor. Can I edit your next film? No one, you wouldn't want to work with that person. So why would you send an email like that? Make it super personal. I extensively use LinkedIn, use Instagram, check up on people, like their posts, comment, send an email, and keep following up. If you can build a system for consistent follow-ups every month or two, make a color-coded spreadsheet, Google Docs, whatever, consistently follow up with people, because amazing things will happen when you focus more on the quality than the quantity.
Amazing, Imani.
Yeah. There's so many things. Well, definitely follow the trades. If you're not following the trades, like Hollywood Reporter, Variety, all those, it's just a great way to like stay up to date and such. And then with the research part, I really love IMDb Pro, with just like being able to capture those companies too, where it's like any dream companies, like, you know, you can go on there and like track them and track like what projects they have coming out and like what they're doing. Like, oh, how could like my work kind of like fit into maybe like what they're pivoting into, whether it's like the A24s, Neons and stuff. So you can explore an IMDb Pro membership. Sometimes there's like promo codes at different festivals because they sponsor different festivals. Or I think there's like a student code maybe, but it can be like a little pricey. But it's very worth it. So definitely suggest like just trying that out. Even on the free trial, there is a free trial. And yeah, use Instagram.
Amazing. Well, we're over time, so
Thanks for having me.
to end it. But thank you all. Thank you everyone for coming, and we'll see you around.
See you around.
Thank you.